In this story, the people are celebrating the Harvest Fest. And it's a time of thanksgiving. It's a time to stop and thank God for all his gifts, starting way back with freeing them from slavery in Egypt, to bringing them to the Promised Land, to the wonderful harvest they have. And so they take the first fruits of their harvest in a big basket and present it to the priest and offer it to God in thanksgiving. And then they go home and have a meal, and they invite not only their families, but the poor and the aliens, so that all might celebrate together. And they don't put the poor and the aliens back in some corner, but they gather them around the family table where everybody can be equal.
A reading from the book of Deuteronomy. Moses spoke to the people, saying, "When the priest takes the basket from your hand and sets it down before the altar of the Lord your God, you shall make a response before the Lord your God. A wandering man was my ancestor. He went down into Egypt and lived there as an alien, few in number. And there he became a great nation, mighty and populous. When the Egyptians treated us harshly and afflicted us by imposing hard labor on us, we cried to the Lord, the God of our ancestors. The Lord heard our voice and saw our affliction, our toil and our oppression. The Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, with a terrifying display of power, and with signs and wonders. And he brought us to this place and gave us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. So now I bring the first of the fruit of the ground that you, O Lord, have given me. You shall set it down before the Lord your God and bow down before the Lord your God." The word of the Lord.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, returned from the Jordan and was led by the Spirit in the wilderness, where for 40 days he was tempted by the devil. He ate nothing at all during those days, and when they were over, he was famished. The devil said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command this stone to become a loaf of bread." Jesus answered him, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone." Then the devil led him up and showed him in an instant all the kingdoms of the world. And the devil said to him, "To you I will give their glory and all its authority, for it has been given over to me, and I give it to anyone I please. If you then worship me, it will all be yours." Jesus answered him, "It is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him." Then the devil took him to Jerusalem, placed him on the pinnacle of the temple, and saying to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down from here, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you to protect you, and on their hands they will bear you up, so that you will not dash your foot against a stone." Jesus answered him, "It is said, do not put the Lord your God to the test." When the devil had finished every test, he departed from him until an opportune time. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise be to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Well, how's Lent going? This is Ash Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Okay. There's a little story about a family, several kids, and parents thought one year they would suggest, instead of giving up candy, why don't you give up something, a sin or some bad habit you have? Good idea. So about the middle of Lent, Dad checked in on him and said, how's it going? And the one boy had given up fighting with his brothers and sisters. So when his dad asked how it's going, he said, well, pretty good, but I can't wait until Easter. Jesus was tempted too. Now, for a long time I had difficulty believing that because I thought Jesus knew everything. I thought Jesus was God in flesh, and he didn't have any questions, he didn't have any doubts, he knew everything. So how can you tempt somebody who knows everything and has, it's God? But after thinking about this and praying about it and studying about it, I learned that that Jesus is human and divine. That he didn't just act like a human being. That humanity wasn't just a disguise he wore, like pulling a suit over him, a rubber mask or something, and pretending to be human. He was fully human, fully divine. But if he were going to come down and be human, he would have to forget that he was God and only gradually become aware of that fact. When he was born as a baby, he was like your babies. They don't know everything. They have to learn everything. And Jesus was in the same situation. And only gradually did he become aware of the fact that he was special, that he was different, that he had and probably by this time of the story in the gospel, he was aware of the fact that he was called to a special mission, that he had special powers, that he was at least called to be a great prophet, and perhaps more than that. But this knowledge was gradually evolving within him through his prayer and his quiet time. And so the devil said to him, look, I know that you have a special mission, that you're called to do very special things, that you're called to bring people back to God. So, first of all, you've been fasting for a long time, and you're famished, and you can't even hardly stand up. You're weak. You need some nourishment. Why don't you just turn those stones into bread and eat something so you have some energy? This is going to take a lot of energy to fulfill your mission. Well, that didn't work, and so the devil took him, let's say, to Rome, where the Caesar was, and said, look here. Here's where the power is. I can put you in with Caesar. In fact, I could even make you a Caesar. You can have all the power in the world over the whole civilized world, and you can say what you want, and people will believe you, and they will do what you say just because you're Caesar. That's how to change things. You can't do it in this godforsaken country we call Palestine. And when that didn't work, the devil took him up to the pinnacle, the highest part in the temple, and said, why don't you just jump off and do a few flips and let the angels come and lift you up? And everybody would be watching this, and they'd say, wow, it's a Superman. And that magic would attract them, and they would listen to you, and they would follow you. So Jesus' temptations were a lot different than mine or yours, but they were tailored to Jesus and to his mission and his task. To do things the easy way, to make it work quickly. Our temptations are different, but our temptations are tailored to us. And so, what is God calling you to do? What are your favorite temptations? What temptations have been tailored just for you, just for me? We might think about those now and see how we can resist as Jesus did. I think Jesus' temptations were more difficult than our temptations, really. The more I think about it, he was more tempted than any of us, but he was able to resist. We might even think about how we go back to the first reading, how we deal with the poor in our community, how we show them God's love, how we try to understand them, even though they're very difficult and very different from us, and how we can reach out and show them God's love. Let's just take a few moments to reflect.